Hi, it's JW again, and it's more of failed electrical products. These adapters, which were bought from another Chinese seller on eBay, and they're the sort of thing that you're supposed to use, and it converts sort of any plug to most of any others. Here's another one which is fairly similar, though it's slightly different design. In the pack they're not looking too bad, but bought these because just from the actual design of them it was apparent that there was at least one major failing in the design which could actually be extremely dangerous, so let's see if that is actually the case. Okay, we've got the two products here in the packaging as they were supplied, and they're both fairly similar. This is sort of a double blister type pack, and this has a card on the back there. Have a look at this one first. This back here just pops off, and it comes with this bag, which seems a rather bizarre addition to the mix there. That presumably can be stored in there for future purposes, I suppose. Anyway, that seems pretty relevant. Now the packaging, as you can see, doesn't actually have any real information on it. There's some fairly basic instructions there. There's no manufacturer's name, address, barcode or anything else to identify the culprits that manufactured it. Some sort of CE mark there, which probably means Chinese exports rather than what it should mean. And the thing itself once again has the dubious two letters on there. Some sort of red indicator there. It has actually got shutters at least, which is at least something, I suppose. Which presumably is, yeah, they're not. So they're crap, aren't they? I mean, just look at that. I mean, the point of the shutters is you're not supposed to be able to poke things in there, and yet if we just get the screwdriver, just go straight in there. Yeah, that's just absolute rubbish. I don't really know why they bothered. I mean, and the hole's so big, I mean, you can't actually get your finger in, but yeah, I mean, that's just not, that's not stopping anything. There's a hole here where the earth pin, or whatever pins that the various plugs have, would go, but there's actually no metal in there, so good luck trying to actually connect a 3-prong appliance there, and of course there's nothing to stop you doing that. It just wouldn't be earthed if you plugged it in there. It's got these sort of lock and unlock things on the top and the bottom, and the purpose being that if you unlock it, the pins will spring out. That's the UK standard there. This one does actually stick a bit, so you have to sort of pull the pins out and then lock it, and yeah, it's well, it's in place. That pin just sort of flops about and doesn't really do a great deal. If you're European, it's this thing which just sort of bends out like that with the two round pins, and at the top there you've got the other prongs there for well, USA or whatever there, and they should, yeah, it's a twist for the Australian or other countries that have them on various angles. Now, the thing that occurs to me when I saw the design of this was that these pins could be left in that sort of position so that they're actually protruding, so that if you plug this into a UK socket that was made of metal, the problem you would have is that this pin here would be live, connecting to obviously this pin as well, and of course that pin then would press against the metal front of the socket, and you're basically shorting out the main, so there'd be a pretty substantial explosion, and who knows what kind of bad things would happen. So of course it all depends if there is continuity on those pins, so let's find out. Well, I've got some probes here, we'll just check continuity. See there, it's beeps when there is. So is there any continuity between that, which actually doesn't even fit very well, and this? Well, interestingly, no, there isn't, so they have thought of that. Let's pry that out. Presumably it will switch on at some point. No, it's just totally totally bust. That's just there's continuity there. I see. So what the hell is going on there then? No. So we have continuity on this pair. Let's bend that back. Yeah, it's still there. Okay, and it turns off about there. Okay, so that wouldn't actually short out there, but I still don't like the design of it. So then what's going on here then? Nope, there's nothing there. That surely is an epic failure, because surely there's got to be, otherwise it's not going to work. Yeah. Now the second possible failure is, of course that would only occur if there was a metal socket and the pins were sort of left protruding, but presumably some switch in here will open it up later and have a look. So that's a start. Now the other problem is that these two up here presumably have continuity there as well, so if they're poked out, let's just have a look. Yes, oh yes, definitely. Yeah. So this is plugged in your UK socket there, that with the live pin on that side, and of course that means this pin is live. So if you plug that in there, typical socket is only going to come up to about well, here somewhere, and of course these could be protruding if they were left poked out over the top, so a finger's in there and you've killed yourself. That is definitely not a good plan. Of course what you're supposed to do is to put those pins away and then just plug it in, but even so you could still potentially get your finger over the top there and contact that live pin in there. Yeah, suicide pins, that is really a poor design, and potentially the same thing could happen if you had your European pins out there. If those go in like that, put that in the European outlet, and of course that can be put in either way round, not a polarised fixture. This and that are going to be connected, and that connected, so that goes in your wall socket, and bearing in mind the length of this extra plastic here, that leaves plenty of space for these pins to be poked at by people or whoever. So yes, that is a pretty poor example. I'll get a proper UK socket in a moment and we'll see how it would actually look on the wall. This is the other one. It's basically the same design. It's got the pop-out suicide pins in there, and of course this pin which it actually goes beyond the vertical there, which and it doesn't lock in position. Even if you lock that, that's there, but this is still all over the place. And of course plastic, so no earth, and there's no contact there again, so there's a potential problem there. Shutters, yeah, just as bad as the other one. Just going to need to be defeated with a screwdriver when that's any poking implement. Yeah, or even the ruler could probably just pry in there. Yeah, that's poor. This has the added bonus of a USB adapter hole there, which allegedly is going to supply 1 amp at 5 volts. That seems optimistic, so we might check that out as well. Okay, this is a standard UK socket, twin model or receptacle if you are American and prefer that terminology, and that would typically be either mounted on the wall in a flush arrangement, so all of the back here would be on the wall and you just have that white piece showing, or the other way is to use a surface box and that would fit like that, sticking out half a mile. But either way, the actual perimeter of the thing is the same. So let's bring in the adapter of evil and see if it actually does fit. Yeah, that should go in there. Okay, well it does just about clear the switch there. That's good news, I suppose. And yeah, as expected, there is a gap there, so if that's on your wall like that, that would be the wall where my finger is there. Oh, we can actually just use a bit of paper there, that's the wall. And there's a considerable gap there, which is essentially the thickness of the faceplate and it's big enough to get fingers and such in there. And of course, if those things are exposed, yeah, you can definitely touch that with your finger, no trouble. And of course, adult fingers fit there, child's fingers would fit even more easily. It's some difficulty in removing it from the socket there. Okay, this would be the situation if it was on a surface fixed box. You've got that extra depth there, so that would be flat on the wall at the back there, and then you've got that extra section sticking out. Typically done in places where it's done to be cheaper and quicker, such as poor quality rented properties. And the problem is, of course, much worse. So if we can actually get this thing to fit in there, we can hopefully get the other one to fit over there. There you go. So this is all your depth from the wall. Wall will be back here, about where that piece of cardboard is, like that. And of course, those live pins are completely exposed along the top there, and of course over there. And if they were accidentally unlocked, they'll actually have a tendency to spring out and ease that away from the socket face itself. That one's not too bad in that regard. It does at least secure, but that one, as you see, there's a definite movement on it. This does not. Yeah, that does not fit there well at all. I don't have any European wall outlets or sockets here, but I can imagine the same situation is going to apply, simply for the fact that that sticks out a substantial distance. Then you've either got these accidentally left protruding, or probably not those, because the socket on those is fairly round, so they would more likely be covered by the socket itself, but these certainly would be right in the danger zone. The back of these actually is, yeah, pretty much identical, so they're obviously the same internals, just have a different outer casing, and the front socket again is the same pretty poor old thing. Once again, there's no fuse in any of these. It doesn't appear to be. At any rate, it's simply a straight through connection. So again, you've got that problem of if you're using a plug that's outside the UK, such as a 2-pin Chinese thing or whatever else, then it's totally unfused. So a 30 amp or 32 amp circuit in here, and then you could have a little thin 0.5mm flex trailing on the back of it. Does that fit? Yep. Straight in there. Little thin flex, 32 amp protective device clearly is going to result in this overheating at best, setting on fire at worst. I just noticed that this other one also comes with this little bag, and it has some sort of instructions inside. Alright, there we go. That side is in English, it appears, and the other side is not. So getting back to the English side, I presume this is the case because the pack on this is just one of these clamshell type things, and there's absolutely nothing on it. It's got a little picture at the bottom showing the different outlets it can plug into, and the back is just a little short bit of text in considerable number of different languages, which doesn't tell you anything. So this is presumably the equivalent of these instructions on the back of the other one, and they look, yeah, they are in fact identical, without reading that in great detail, but yeah, the pictures are the same, the text is the same, and yeah, they're more than likely made in the same factory. This is another common situation. These four-way extension lead type adapters are very common, particularly if people have got a small number of outlets in the house, which is in virtually most houses. You just buy these with the 4 or sometimes more sockets in there, and then it just has a lead with a single plug on the end. Now, nothing wrong with these in themselves. There's a 13 amp fuse in there, so you can't actually get more than 13 amps out of that. But of course this will presumably fit in here as well, and they do just about fit side by side there. But yeah, as you can see, it's a complete disaster because both the European and the USA or Australian pins are readily accessible there if you haven't bothered to lock them away. And in the case of the European one, if it's folded away, well yes, it is out of reach, but of course those two clearly are not. They're right there waiting to be poked at, and just confirm there is actually some continuity on those. So even if the pins are retracted or locked in with the little lever there, there is still the easy potential of touching those. Let's just see if there's any continuity between them. Okay, so not in the closed position. Yeah, but when they're extended, yeah. Seems a very unreliable connection, but yeah, easily connectable, and presumably the European, yeah. Absolutely. Just to prove that that would kill somebody, here's the plug which would go into the mains outlet. Let's put that in the picture there. That's the live pin over there on that side, and yeah. So there you are. 3 deadly bits of metal, and of course this one is the neutral, which will connect likewise. Yeah, of course irrelevant because this doesn't have any of those, it's just a plastic hole. So it does appear that there is some sort of switch inside which disconnects the pins here when they are folded away, or in the case of those are retracted, but of course when they are exposed there, continuity there, and obviously when those are folded out, yeah, and that remains pretty much for most of the length until you actually get almost on the horizontal. And of course you should presumably use this with the pins retracted, but the fact it's just a little slide switch, they could easily just pop out anytime waiting to kill people. Same situation with that one. And certainly in the worst case scenario, which is this adapter thing, which fits in like that. Allegedly safe in that situation, but does not go over. And there you are. Suicide pins are exposed. Well, I've got these connected to the testing machine. Let's just see if they do actually work. Okay, that's got a red light on it, and this one has a green for some inexplicable reason. There we are. Who can know what the designers of these things were thinking? And that green one slowly fades out. Presumably there's a capacitor or something in there that's holding the charge. That's the one with the USB fixture there, so not desperately surprising. Okay, this is the same situation, just upside down there, so the suicide holes are exposed on the back there. And we just test using this probe coming in here. And if there's any continuity between this probe and these terminals, then that is a massive fail. So let's try it with the pins retracted first of all. That's a huge fail there, that dreadful noise. That's rather interesting because this one here, which is the one with the just the surge protector in it, did actually pass, but this clearly did not, so I was wondering what the it may be something to do with that USB adapter in there. Yes, that's definitely failed, so that may be the fact that the USB item has caused that, or maybe it's been destroyed with the testing voltage. This probe applies about 3000 volts to confirm the quality of the insulation. Probably not suitable for testing electronic devices, but on the other hand, that was with the pins in and theoretically disconnected, so it shouldn't have actually made the slightest bit of difference. Let's just try this one again with the pins extended. I'm sure we can guess what the result's going to be, but we'll just have a look anyway. So that's a definite fail. There's no question about the danger of that item. And of course no earth pin on the front, no fusing, a bit of a major disaster. And of course if you just went and bought this, if you were either going abroad or if you were visiting the UK and wanted to plug in your plug some other countries in there, of course you wouldn't necessarily know about this. I'll just put this one back in with the USB thing inside, and the light does still turn on, so it's not entirely clear whether that test has actually killed it or not. It still does exactly what it did before, so maybe not. Maybe it's just a piece of failing junk in the first place. This is a metal-faced socket, and all of this metal work would be connected to earth via the terminals on the back, so in the case of this adapter the pins would actually contact onto the earth metal. Now of course they should be disconnected in the retracted position, but as we saw on the other adapter that's not actually the case. They do appear to have some possibility of connecting to the line and neutral terminal, so once again if that does happen you're shorting out the mains, no fuse there, so there's going to be a bit of a big bang and possibly an explosion. Now this one claims to have a surge protector in it. I really don't see the point, and I would have to question the point of having a surge protector that doesn't actually connect to the earth terminal there, because it's a plastic pin, it's not going to connect to anything, so it's purely on the line and neutral there. This one also has a surge protector allegedly, and this is the one with this USB socket in the top which claims to supply an amp. I doubt it very much. Again, it's got these sort of, they look like covers for screws, but they're not, they're just indents in the plastic, so I don't think there's actually any screws in there, although the whole thing yeah, there is some movement there, so maybe it is screwed, but anyway, we'll see if we can get in there and open it up and see what's inside. Right, I've just milled out those holes, and it looks like there is some screws in the bottom, so hopefully we can just go in there, not with that one, and yep, just unscrew those two screws, and then we shall see what is contained within. Right, well here we are inside the device. The first thing to notice is that just by undoing those two screws, the whole thing has basically disintegrated into a pile of springs and various other bits and pieces. Let's just have a look in the main thing. As expected, it is just straight through connections, so that's the holes on the front there. Again, no earth at all, just the two line and neutrals which come through here. All the terminals are the same design. That's the UK one, so when they're actually protruding there, the pins here are right on the front of the casing, which of course means they will contact on the pins inside the case there. And of course when they're pushed in, they will go down to the bottom, inside the bottom there, and obviously away from the contact, so they are only connected when they are in fact protruding. Now the other one is the one with the USB adapter inside. That's obviously the power converter there, and that's just the socket at the bottom. I can possibly extract that from in there. Yeah, well, there's pretty much nothing on that at all. Input wires there, connected directly across the main supply, so that's 240 volts on these extremely thin, flimsy little wires there, just to get an idea of the scale of that. Spring the ruler, that's in millimeters there, and yeah, they are ridiculously tiny. That goes straight over to this little board, and of course the output is on the same extremely thin wires. Let's just cut that out of there. The other one opens up the same way, it's just the two screws holding it together, and once those are uncovered, the whole thing just comes apart incredibly easily. Yeah, once again the same, just wiping contacts there, and there's the insides. And there's your surge protector there. A single device, a MOV probably, and just connected directly between the line and neutral. So yes, it does have a surge protector, but really that's not going to do anything for anybody. And in this case it's not an LED, it's probably a neon, again just between the two line and neutral, and it's just two wires going up to the little neon indicator in the top of the case, which appears just to be glued in position. A couple of resistors under the heat shrink there, and that's all there is. Well, on that second one, that is the surge protection, that single device, just connected directly across the supply. Not likely to do a great deal for surge protection or anything else. And as for the other one, there's actually nothing in the casing at all there. So whatever surge protection they're claiming presumably is on this board, but really I don't see any surge protection there. You've just got a few capacitors, the transistor or whatever it is, and that is it. I have at least put some slots there between the two halves, the mains and the 5V, but yeah, really it's remarkable you can actually make a power supply with so few components. That one with the USB does have this other small board which fitted in the top of the casing there. It's purely really to hold the USB socket in place, and there's nothing else on the back really, just a few resistors there. That's a little, that's the LED, which is that green one which showed through the front panel. A single capacitor there, and that's about it. This is the USB version, and I just actually looked to see what was happening with these pins. On that test, even when they were retracted, the test was a fail, which suggests that these have somehow connected internally to either the line or neutral or both. What's actually happened is that this design internally is slightly different to the other one, and there's the pins which should be disconnected, but just below it, literally a millimetre or so below, is the set of contacts which they are supposed to connect to when they're exposed. So these pins are very, very loose in the housing, and so depending on the position of them, they could easily contact those terminals in there, and of course be connected to the supply even though the pins are actually retracted. Inside this one, the actual pins rest on these two springs here, and at this end there's two additional mouldings which go into the slots on the side of the corresponding pins there, but at the top, because of the USB connector board there are no plastic guides for this to sit into. Now in the lid there are plastic guides at both ends, but if you look at the actual size of it, they only protrude a fairly short distance at that end, and what this means is when the pins are extended it's fully over these plastic guides, so they're quite secure. But when they're retracted and stuck way down there, the end of that is about 2 or 3 millimetres in the plastic guides there, so they're quite free to move around and as you see contact onto the live or neutral pins in there. There's also another even worse situation in that when this is pressed down, those two contacts there which just press onto here will actually short onto the back of the USB casing there. So potentially if that's pressed down and fully retracted, these pins are now connected to the casing of the USB socket, and if they move forward you've now got the mains either there, or worst case scenario shorting it out inside the adapter, or if it's just one connected you've potentially got the live connected right through to the metal casing, and you've then got a live on this here, and obviously that will then go through to the device that was plugged in there. So it appears that this design has either been altered and it had the original guides at this end and they've changed it to put this board in, or they just forgot to put them in, which has resulted in these top pins simply not having anything to fit onto other than those two little spring posts there. This is the other one which did actually pass the test, and it's significantly different in that at this end it's got the plastic mouldings on both ends, so regardless of the position of those pins they will actually be secured in there. If we just take the springs out, as you can see it will fit in there, so it's secured there and won't actually be able to move forward and contact between the pin and the metalwork inside. And again in the lid you've got the same situation there, so regardless of the position it's moving on these little plastic rails at both ends. Well, that's it for that video, and once again the perils of buying things on eBay which appear at first sight to be perfectly fine, but in the end are in fact just a load of old junk, and potentially extremely dangerous if those pins were contacted by people's fingers. So buyer beware is definitely the rule there.
Hello, I'm JW, and it's failed electrical products time once again. This particular product here is a multi-way extension lead, and of course it has the plug here and one of these ridiculous types of outlets where you can shove virtually any old plug in there. Now this particular item came from a seller on eBay. The seller is located in the UK and the item was shipped from the UK, and the seller also had a fair quantity of these available for sale. But just looking at the picture of the item, it's obvious that there's a considerable number of problems with the item, some of which of course can make it extremely dangerous. So let's open it up and see what we can find inside. Now here's the product in the packaging as supplied. It's in this sort of plastic overwrap, and the back is just a piece of cardboard, the plastic being secured with these rather sharp and pointy staples, most of which are sticking out at various angles. So what we've got here is a 3-pin plug. laughingly along the lines of the BS1363 standard, although this of course is nowhere near that. Presumably a bit of wire here, and the thing itself, which has these odd looking multiple outlet things, obviously intended for a whole variety of plugs to go in, and then of course you've got the 2-pin varieties along the top as well. Bizarrely, it's got a voltmeter installed, some kind of blue covering of purpose yet unknown, and that's pretty much it. Possibly a neon indicator on this end, and the whole thing in the packaging looks pretty poor quality and mediocre. Now on the front of the thing here, it's got a number of claims as to what it may or may not do. As you see down the front here, we've got the 4 bullet points. So we've got electric surge protecting device, overload protecting device, and then we've got independent protector tube device. I have no idea what that means. And then here we have safe protecting door structure. We can only assume they're referring to shutters over the outlet holes, but in any case that's a pretty bizarre way of doing it, and 4-level security and other spurious things. At the top here I've got the name, which is Astra on this one, although I've had a quick look on the internet, and of course there's various other model numbers and names stuck on these. It's presumably some generic product which you can have pretty much any old name and thing stamped on that you would like. This dubious logo here says ISO 9001 for the year 2000. Aside from that being a horribly out-of-date standard, because the current one is 2008, this means nothing because it doesn't actually have any kind of accreditation or information as to who is providing that standard certification. And if you actually look around what it says on the thing, which we'll have a look at in a moment, the wording around the edge is completely wrong anyway. On the back of the thing there's a whole load of waffle, most of which is probably wrong, which tells you how wonderful the device or things may be inside. And then further down we've just got that sort of diagram of the various plugs and things which can be used with it. Rather odd section as well. Technical parameters, installation resistance 500 megohms, rated voltage 250 AC, rated current 10 amps, and of course power 2500 watts maximum, which of course is 250 times 10. There's no manufacturer's name on this, there's no barcode, although there's a large space here where one could have been put. So really we don't know where this was made or who made it. Obviously they're ashamed of telling you who they are. So just peel away the plastic edges. I say most of these staples are protruding and rather sharp, so keep away from that. And so there are just the cardboard and the mechanism, of course, in the tray itself. So again, there we've just got another bit of card there with those rather dubious bullet points on. Plastic tray. The other bit of card, which just for amusement, let's just have a look at that logo on the top corner. So there's a look at that dubious ISO logo. It's obviously fake, and just check out the wording around the bottom edge. Starts out okay, but then it all goes horribly wrong. Now this lead has apparently been assembled like this prior to it being fitted to the device, because to get it off you've got to pass the plug through here, which of course is impossible considering the fact that you've got to unravel it, but you can't because that's in there, so perhaps the whole thing should pass through, but once again, no, that's not going to happen, so bit of a fail there. So let's just see if we can untangle it and hopefully get the thing actually open. Right, well, I've managed to unravel that eventually, and just measured the length of it. The product claimed it was 1.5 metres of flex. It is 1.5 metres long, but only if we include the actual adapter itself. The flex is considerably shorter than that. And the flex itself is a rather strange type of stuff. The outer covering appears to be loose with respect to the inner conductors, so something definitely wrong there. We'll just have a quick look at the markings on the flex. So there we go, it doesn't really tell you anything. PVC insulated wire, 300 or 500 volts. And that appears to be the only markings. They're repeated a bit further along the wire there, but I say it does feel rather bizarre because you can feel that the outer covering is not attached to the inner wires. There's obviously some kind of air space inside, which is definitely wrong. But anyway, we'll cut that open later. Now the plug here is certainly of interest. This is of the style of BS1363. Unfortunately though, of course, it's very far from it. Now, as you can see, it's extremely small and there's no fuse in it, both of which are huge fails. The pins here are too close to the edge, certainly non-compliant. The pins are actually sleeved and the earth pin is not, which I suppose is something. Some of these exist where they've actually sleeved the earth pin as well, but nevertheless it's a piece of junk. And it does have some wording on here. It says 13 amps, 250 volts, which if it was a BS1363 would actually be correct. Pretty obviously though it's not. Bearing in mind on the packaging they told us this was a 10 amp device, so that doesn't make a lot of sense either. Now just for comparison purposes, I've got a proper plug here. It's not a particularly unusual style or fancy one, it's just a normal cheap one you can buy anywhere. Here it is. So you can see the substantial smaller size of this thing. And if we just turn them around there, see the pins are certainly similar, but the sizing of them is clearly incorrect. They're too short, and I don't know about the spacing, but I've got the two plugs here, and well, they're certainly not the same style. That earth pin there looks rather fat actually compared to the other one, but anyway, let's just have a look for the width in this direction here. Right, well there we go. As you can see, the proper plug there with the gold coloured lead coming out of it is actually somewhat wider than the other one on the other side. Pin length as well, as you can see that earth pin on the nasty plug is too short by far. Not quite sure about the other pins there, but nevertheless it's a pretty poor effort. And so obviously there's no fuse here because the body of the thing is too small to contain it, and there's no actual way of getting a fuse out of there, even if it did have one. So moulded on plug, fully sealed. This end has this rather bizarre strain relief affair on it, and that doesn't appear to be doing a great deal. So before we actually open this thing, I thought we'd just do a test on it to see if it does actually work. So what it needs to do is place a pin into the outlets here. Then we'll use the one at the end because that's, you know, obviously the worst case scenario. It sort of rams in. This clamp will then attach to that. Now the other end of this is plugged into the testing machine, which is an output view of the camera. It's just up here. And essentially we're going to use the setting just to confirm the earth is continuity between the pin here and the pin in the tubeless plug. And this will also apply 1250 volts between the earth and the line in neutral, so obviously that should confirm any kind of faults and things in the device. I presume that is on, so let's just press the test and see what happens. Well, that's a big fail straight away, because as you can see the thing has no earth continuity at all. That's very bad altogether. So that's a huge fail. Let's just try it and switch in the other position in case some bizarre reason that was as it was. No, that's a total fail. Let's see the red light indicating fail, and the meter over there indicating basically the earth resistance is infinity. So no good, I might actually call that. So fail before we've even opened it up. Let's just try it in this pin. God, that sounds grindy. Let's just try it in this other pin in here. I'm sure this will give us a very similar result. Yeah, as expected, there's absolutely no continuity on the earth there whatsoever, which that's just pathetic, isn't it? So the thing has totally failed. Switch on or off, it appears to make little or no difference. So as you see here, it does have the brass earth pin, but obviously it doesn't appear to be connected to anything inside of the sockets here, so that's pretty poor. Now this thing obviously has failed the test, but just for amusement purposes, let's just apply a voltage to it and see if this dubious voltmeter thing does actually work. So I'm certainly not going to be touching the device while this is happening, but we'll just apply the normal mains voltage from the testing machine once again, and we shall see what, if anything, goes wrong. Okay, well the meter has moved to a position resembling 240 volts and the orange indicator at this end has illuminated. It's not drawing any current, which is a good sign. So there we go. If we turn off this dodgy switch, you would expect it not to energise there. Oh, right, so at least the switch turns it on and off. Right, let's just disconnect that completely before it blows up and sets the place on fire. So now let's just have a look inside the thing, and as previously mentioned here, we've got the screws on the back. So I'll just undo those, and hopefully we can get inside very easily. So these appear to be these sort of cross and slot combined types of screws, so no problem in undoing those with a normal flat screwdriver. And so just before we take the cover off, we can just look at the wording on the back there. It says movable socket, 10 amps to 20 volts, 50 or 60 hertz, and obviously made in China. And so you've got two little holes there at that end, and then this sort of keyhole slot to presumably mount it on a wall if you wanted to do such a thing. So anyway, the back should just lift off, so let's just undo the screws there. Right, so that's just a single moulding, nothing inside there. Well, nothing apart from this piece of red sleeving, which has been cut off the end of one of the wires, presumably, and left inside. Poor quality manufacturing there, for certain. So here I'm inside the device, and flex comes in here. It is at least secured with a bar style of clamp, and 3 conductors inside. Solid green, that's not permitted, it should be green and yellow. Solid green went out in the early 70s, so well out of date. And brown and blue for the others, which are at least the correct colours. Brown coming in via this switch here, and then coming out on this red insulated conductor. And that appears just to go along all the way to each of the terminals on the various outlets. The neutral is directly connected, and likewise it just goes along to the various outlets there. And the earth, laughingly called, is connected inside, but it's obviously not connected at the other end. And that just goes to each terminal in turn, as do the others. Now here we've actually gone in for a much closer look. This is the back of one of those 3-pin sockets, and as you see, the terminals are just basically bits of bent metal, and the wires are directly soldered on, directly onto the back of there. Now that's a pretty poor method of attachment, and of course if this was to be a loose connection, when you put the pin of the plug in, this will overheat and that will melt the solder, causing the connections to fall off. And the same over here, and it's the same for the earth as well. It's all a pretty poor old thing, bodged together in the cheapest way possible. That red there on the metal is just a reflection from the plastic sleeving, by the way. It is actually a shiny silver. There we go, as the rest of them are. Now, I don't know what voltage this particular wire is rated for, but that insulation is pretty thin looking, and you'll notice where it's been considerably distorted and damaged at the ends, where obviously the heat from the soldering has caused it to melt partially. There's a nasty scuff mark on it there. And if we look at the 2-pin socket above, we can see here where they've soldered on the incoming neutral, the end is somewhat burnt. There's obviously some flux residue on the insulation there, and again it's all this sort of tacked together with solder kind of affair. Really incredibly poor quality construction. The sockets themselves appear to be just held in with a single screw in the centre, and in the case of the 3-pin variety you've got 2 screws. This material here appears to be some kind of hard ceramic type substance, which is a fairly odd choice, given that you would expect it to be moulded plastic or some kind of phenolic resin type material. But anyway, it's certainly a type of vitreous or some sort of ceramic type material. This is the LED indicator, and I say it's just a standard LED which has been attached with these very thin wires. Again, it's all a soldered type of connection. That one goes directly over to the terminal, and then the other one here via this tiny little resistor. And again, it's just bodge soldered on there. Notice they haven't even bothered to trim the length of the leads here, they're just sticking out miles, and likewise over this side. Great flapping length of lead hanging out there. And these, say, are not secured in any way. If we actually go in there, we can just move that around and it will quite happily short over to the earth or go anywhere it likes to. So pour again. This is the back of the voltmeter, and again it's just a soldered on or tacked on connection. Spare wire hanging there, there's that bit I just pulled the insulation off of earlier, so again no quality of construction here. The wires themselves are incredibly close together, and you'll notice there's just bits of melted plastic there and kinds of residue of the flux and the soldering. It's a complete mess. So internally it's a very poor quality construction.